I'm joined now by the Conservative MP Brooks Newmark, who's a member of the Treasury Select Committee, and Owen Jones, a columnist for The Independent. Brooks Newmark, if the share price stays where it is, it's been undervalued.
If it does, but, you know, always there's exuberance when there's generally an IPO. And can you imagine if the share price had immediately gone down after the launch? So I think, at the end of the day, I think Vince Cable's right. Let's see where it settles in about 3 months' time, and we'll have a better idea of really where the real price should be.
The bizarre thing is that Labour have been talking the share price up by telling everyone it was undervalued.
Well, I'd stick actually myself to, beautifully put, I think, by the Conservative think tank, the Bowel Group, who said that you can sell £10 notes all day for £5 and call it a huge success. The reality is this is a right royal rip-off. It's great news for foreign sovereign funds, like, for example, the dictatorship in Kuwait, which is one of the great winners today. It's terrible news for the British people. This was our property, hundreds of years of history, flogged off under value. Vince Cable says it's all froth, this loss. This is a government which says, for example, it doesn't have hundreds of millions of pounds to support people, disabled people predominantly, who are being hit by the bedroom tax. The reality is, I think what's even worse, what's most criminal about this, people like Brooks often talk at the moment about socialism, kind of like bad-tempered McCarthyite impressionist, but this is socialism for the rich, because what we've done is nationalise the debt, and we privatise the profit.
Answer some of that. I mean, are you happy with who's buying it?
Absolutely.
And where it's going to end up with? Because all these small investors are going to sell off.
If I can answer the question.
Well, let me get the question out. Go on.
No. Number one, good deal for taxpayers. Number two, good deal for postal workers. 150,000 of Billy Hayes' workers are already made almost £1,000. That is good. Number three, good for pensioners. Number four, good for the trade unions who have probably put their pensions into this particular
That's
share.
true, isn't it, Owen Jones?
No, it is, and actually, if we take the Royal Mail employees, I wouldn't begrudge any working people in this country at a time of the longest fall in living standards since Queen Victoria sat on the throne, getting a bit of free money. The reality is the vast majority of those workers voted against privatisation. They've now voted for strike action, and I hope people will support their posties when they do vote for strike action next week. The reality is this will be bad for the consumers. We've seen, obviously, what's happened to other utilities. It's no longer a service accountable to us, the British public. This is a profitable company, was certainly profitable and getting more profitable as packages increase because of the internet age. This is, as I say, a rip-off, hundreds of millions of pounds, which should have belonged to us.
Brooks Newmark, well, let's concentrate. I mean, you say this is going to be bad for consumers. I mean, why do you believe privatising Royal Mail is going to be better for consumers and better for this company?
Well, number one, rural services won't be affected. This is one thing I've seen out there on Twitter, that somehow
well, that's not
rural thing. Well, it's important. There are a lot of people in rural areas who are concerned about this. But I think most importantly, taxpayers won't have to foot the bill for further investment. And that's important, because otherwise, just a second, otherwise government has to take on more debt in order to fund investment. This way, there's a market out there. You can go out, issue more shares, and then with the money that's raised, reinvest into postal services.
How would that investment have happened without this privatisation?
Well, I mean, look at Transport for London now. They've just done a deal with the government to borrow £1 billion over the next few years in order to pay for investment. The reality is actually the taxpayers already spent billions of pounds before privatisation modernising the service. Look, the reality is this is a privatisation which was opposed not just by the majority of voters, it was opposed by the majority of Conservative voters, and for good reason. They've looked at other privatisations, like rail, like energy, like all the other utilities. Again, the majority of people, they've gone through those privatisations and they then support themselves renationalising them because of the disaster that's been caused. These people, at the end of the day, the new owners of Royal Mail, they have dividends in terms of their interests, not delivery, not the service.
This broadens it nicely for us, Brooks Newmark.
Sure.
I mean, is there anything you wouldn't privatise?
The NHS.
That's the only thing.
Doing it anyway.
I wouldn't. But you know, I think what happens is people always oppose any form of privatisation, whether it was telecoms, gas, you name it. They always oppose it. But then services improve. There's greater efficiencies. There's an ability to
services improve on the railways?
I think so. You could.
Well,
can you imagine if you
voters don't think that, Brooks, including Conservative voters.
Just a second. If you had to go to taxpayers to then invest, you know, hundreds of millions of pounds back into, effectively, the rail services, Network Rail and so on, that would not be a good thing.
Last word,
It's
briefly.
much better-
Don't talk over each other.
Let me finish that. We spend 4 times more as taxpayers on the privatised railways than we did in the times of British Rail. And as I've said, this is, again, it's nationalising the debt because we, the taxpayer, have to still hold the liabilities, the pension fund. We've privatised the profit. Like other utilities, services will deteriorate. It's our property which has been sold off to unaccountable investors.
We could go on all night, I'm sure, but thank you both very much indeed for joining us.